Despite cameras being banned from Lil Durk's trial, footage from inside the courtroom just leaked online, and it's going viral. Prosecutors are already using the leak to make a major move against Durk. Let me break it down. Federal court photography rules are about as strict as it gets. No cameras, no phones out, no pictures, period. In Lil Durk's case, someone broke that rule anyway. During a pretrial hearing on November 18, 2025, federal prosecutors argued for an anonymous jury, citing threats, national media attention, and the violent reputation of Durk's alleged criminal enterprise. And right in the middle of that argument, someone in the room pulled out a device and did the one thing you're never allowed to do. Someone snapped a photo of OTF Boogie and OTF Daddy, two of Durk's co-defendants, inside the courtroom and posted it to Reddit, Instagram, and Facebook. Within hours, it was everywhere. Photography is banned in federal courts, yet the image was widely shared across social media. This wasn't some grainy TMZ zoom lens shot from across the street. This was from inside the actual courtroom, during an actual hearing of actual co-defendants sitting there facing federal charges. The timing made it worse. Prosecutors had walked into that hearing, asking the judge to keep the jury's identities secret. Their whole pitch was built around danger, that letting names and faces get out could put people at risk. Then, almost as if to prove their point for them, a photo leaked out of the very room where they were making that argument. The photo of co-defendants OTF Boogie and OTF Daddy spread online, and prosecutors reportedly pointed to this illegal courtroom photography as another reason to justify an anonymous jury. Their logic was simple. If people are willing to break federal law just to snap a photo in a hearing, imagine what they'd do with a juror's name and address. If they don't secure it, they argue that witnesses and jurors' identities could be the subject of intimidation, safety threats, or outside influence. If more folks break the law in this manner, the government put it in writing. In a filing that's now part of the public record, prosecutors said the leak spoke for itself, arguing that this blatant violation of the federal rules and the following widespread dissemination of the photograph underscores that an anonymous jury is only one of the security measures this court should employ to prevent improper attempts to intimidate and/or influence jurors, ensure a fair trial for all parties, and protect the judicial process. For Durk's defense team, the leak landed at the worst possible moment. They'd been fighting the anonymous jury request for weeks, calling it prejudicial. The argument being that if jurors think they need protection from the defendant, they'll walk in assuming he's guilty before a single witness takes the stand. Prosecutors want to protect the identity and safety of witnesses and jurors, whereas the defense believes this would downplay transparency and fairness. That argument depended on there being no real evidence of danger in the room. The leaked photo undercut it instantly. Sadly for defense attorneys, that argument just became a little bit harder to make. It's one thing to argue in the abstract that anonymity implies guilt. It's another to argue that in a courtroom where somebody had just broken the law, to snap and spread a photo of the defendants sitting a few feet away. And this wasn't the first flashpoint in this fight. Weeks earlier, prosecutors had already dropped a bombshell of their own tied to the anonymous jury request. Alleged threats connected to people close to Durk. All Hip Hop's Grochi, Greg Watkins, exclusively reported that federal prosecutors filed an 8-page document alleging that the Chicago rapper has displayed contempt for the judicial process and that his OTF crew has intimidated witnesses and threatened both a judge and a prosecutor. One of the messages cited in that filing was blunt. Prosecutors wrote that preventing the leak of jurors' personal information was a paramount concern, in a case where supporters had already made threats. So by the time the courtroom photo leaked, the anonymous jury fight wasn't some routine procedural dispute anymore. It was already loaded with allegations of threats against a sitting judge, threats against prosecutors, and now proof that someone in the room was willing to break federal court rules just to get an image out. The footage and photos coming out of Durk's case weren't just going viral because people were curious about a rapper in a courtroom. They were going viral because every leak was becoming its own piece of evidence in the fight over how the trial itself would be run that set the stage for everything that followed. A case that kept generating headline after headline, not just from what happened inside the courtroom, but from what kept slipping out of it. To understand why a single leaked photo could shake an entire federal case, you have to go back to how Lil Durk ended up in that courtroom in the first place. The story starts with two names most rap fans already know, King Von and Quando Rondo. King Von, born Davon Bennett, was a Chicago rapper and a core member of Lil Durk's Only the Family collective. Quando Rondo, born Tyquan Bowman, is a Savannah, Georgia rapper who signed to NBA YoungBoy's Never Broke Again imprint in 2018. The two camps had been circling each other online for a while, trading subs and jabs that felt, at the time, like typical rap rivalry. Then it turned fatal. On the night of November 6th, King Von and his entourage got into an altercation with Quando Rondo and his crew at the Monaco Hookah Lounge in Atlanta, Georgia. The fight broke out around 2 a.m. and quickly escalated, resulting in shots being fired. 6 people were shot, 2 of whom died from their wounds. One of those 2 was King Von, one of Durk's closest artists on his Only the Family label, and someone he'd mentored for years. Nearly 2 years later, prosecutors say Durk decided to settle the score. Durk is accused of orchestrating a bounty on rap rival Quando Rondo that allegedly culminated in the 2022 shooting in Los Angeles that killed Rondo's cousin, Saviaya Lil Pab Robinson. Prosecutors contend that the alleged plot was motivated by retaliation for the November 2020 killing of Durk's close friend and Only the Family artist King Von, who died following a physical altercation with Quando Rondo outside an Atlanta lounge. The plan, according to the government, didn't hit its target. A 2022 ambush near Los Angeles' Beverly Center will place Lil Durk before a federal jury on August 20. Prosecutors accused the Chicago rapper of ordering the attempted killing of Quando Rondo, an attack that missed its intended target and killed Rondo's cousin, Saviaya Lil Pab Robinson. Rondo walked away. His cousin didn't. Federal investigators say they built their case on more than just theory. A confidential witness told them Durk's alleged bounty wasn't limited to one person. Federal court documents allege that rapper Lil Durk hired hitmen to kill Atlanta-based rapper Quando Rondo and 6 other people in retaliation for the 2020 death of King Von. And the filings say a confidential witness identified as CW1 told investigators that Durk placed monetary bounties for the murders while he was embroiled in long-running disputes with rival groups. That same witness statement claimed direct knowledge of Durk's alleged involvement. In more than just the planning stage, the arrest itself came out of nowhere for a lot of fans. Durk remains incarcerated after his October 2024 arrest in Florida. He was taken into custody near Miami International Airport after authorities said he had booked multiple international flights, prompting concerns that he may have been attempting to flee the country. He is currently being held without bond as he awaits trial. Prosecutors also leaned into his own music as proof of motive. His hit song and its video became a central battleground. With a week to go before the start of Lil Durk's murder-for-hire trial in Los Angeles, a federal judge ruled that the rapper's video and lyrics for his hit single Pissed Me Off can be used as evidence. At a morning hearing, U.S. District Judge Michael Fitzgerald granted prosecutors' request to admit the video and lyrics over the objection of Durk's defense. In their motion, prosecutors argued the song shows Durk's resolve to avenge the death of his friend and protege, Davon King Von Bennett. The defense had a different read on the song entirely. Banks' defense lawyer Marissa Goldberg said showing the video at trial could create so much risk of prejudice and confusion, arguing the song is largely about Banks' slain older brother, Dante D-Thang Banks Jr., with its opening lyrics referencing him directly. His legal team went further in their written filings, pointing out what they called sloppy work by the government. They mentioned that prosecutors incorrectly accused Durk of using a King Von lookalike in the video, explaining that the director actually used old footage of Von, and wrote that this inaccuracy shows the flippancy in which the government views this evidence. But the lyrics fight was only one layer of a case that kept getting bigger. Just months before trial, the government added an entirely new set of charges tied to organized crime allegations. In June 2026, Banks and his associates were charged with violations of the Violent Crimes in Aid of Racketeering Activity Statute, specifically murder in aid of racketeering. In the indictment, it alleges OTF was operated as a criminal enterprise, offering rewards of money and music opportunities in exchange for murdering rivals of Banks. Durk's team came out swinging against that move. Attorneys Drew Findling, Marissa Goldberg, Brian Steele, and Christy O'Connor called it a desperate stretch, saying flatly that this indictment is lipstick on a pig, and arguing that for nearly 2 years, federal prosecutors had been trying to prop up a case they viewed as fundamentally weak. That fight actually worked out in Durk's favor, at least partially. The added racketeering charges tied to the Chicago allegations ended up getting pulled out of the main trial entirely. The newly added Chicago-related counts were tried separately, while Durk's Los Angeles murder for hire trial remains set to begin August 20, 2026. The judge saying in his order that the government failed to show it would be prejudiced by 2 trials. His attorney Drew Findling called it a win, telling Rolling Stone the defense had spent every month of the case fighting for exactly this outcome, adding that they were looking forward to the trial they'd prepared for over nearly 2 years. So going into trial, here's where things stood. The core murder for hire allegation tied to Quando Rondo and his cousin's death was staying in the Los Angeles courtroom. The newer racketeering charges tied to Chicago were getting pushed to a separate proceeding down the line. And the whole case had already been delayed multiple times, dragged out by disputes that had nothing to do with guilt or innocence, and everything to do with what was allowed to be shown to a jury and who that jury would even be. Part 3, the delays that built the pressure cooker. If you've been loosely following this case, you've probably lost count of how many times the trial date changed. That's not an accident. It's exactly why the tension around this trial got so high and why any leak, courtroom photo, or piece of footage landed with so much force. Go back to the beginning. Durk's original court date was set for early January 2025. He was initially supposed to appear in court on Jan 7, but federal prosecutors requested additional time to handle a discovery process involving approximately 230 GB of digital evidence, including audio recordings and surveillance footage, 230 gigabytes. That's not a folder of documents. That's an entire archive of phone data, video, and audio that both sides had to comb through before anyone could even think about picking a jury. The government's own numbers kept climbing. According to prosecutors, the evidence encompasses 20,000 pages of reports concerning murder and other violent acts, photographs, witness statements, and medical documents. That number would later balloon even further. Lil Durk's murder for hire trial was postponed until May 2026, with over 30,000 pages of evidence complicating the case. Every time the case got pushed, Durk stayed exactly where he was, behind bars. Lil Durk remained in custody after multiple denied bond requests, including a $4.5 million bail package. Multiple times his team tried to get him out. Multiple times, judges said no. Then came the delay that really tested everyone's patience. Lil Durk was against a proposed delay that would move his murder for hire trial to January 2026, with prosecutors and co-defendants arguing the case was too complex to proceed as scheduled in October 2025. Unlike previous delays, this one didn't have Durk's blessing. Defendant Banks does not join in the stipulation to continue the trial in this matter. The filing stated he wanted his day in court. The system kept telling him to wait. That January date came and went too. Lil Durk's federal murder for hire trial was pushed to begin on April 21, after the rapper appeared in court, where a judge granted the defendant's request to delay the trial by at least 3 months, with the defendants suggesting moving the start date from Jan 20 to May 4, citing the need for additional time to review discovery. His attorney Drew Findling tried to put a positive spin on it publicly, telling Rolling Stone reporter Nancy Dillon that the defense would have been ready to go to trial within 2 weeks, but that the court appropriately recognized the case needed more preparation given how many people were involved. Then that date got pushed again. Lil Durk had to wait until August for his jury trial after a judge ruled his 3 co-defendants couldn't get separate proceedings, meaning the rapper, whose legal name is Durk Banks, would remain in custody without bail for an additional 4 months before reaching a jury, with his trial, previously scheduled for April, reset for Aug 20. His lawyers pushed back hard on the record, telling Rolling Stone they were fully prepared to proceed and that the continuation happened over their objection. Each delay came with its own legal argument, but the pattern was the same. Co-defendants asking for more time, prosecutors either agreeing or resisting, and Durk sitting in a cell through all of it at one hearing. A lawyer for co-defendant DeAndre Dontrell Wilson argued that the prosecution's theory relied on a multi-year narrative of violence with zero connection to his client, pointing to prosecutors' claims that associates of Banks' crew had attempted to kill Bowman in Chicago back in 2021. By the time the case actually reached its final scheduled date, everyone involved, Durk, his co-defendants, the prosecutors, the judge, had been circling each other for nearly 2 years. Every delay added more evidence, more motions, more disputes over what jurors would and wouldn't be allowed to see, and crucially, more opportunities for something to leak. That pressure boiled over one more time, just weeks before the trial finally got underway. When prosecutors tried to add the racketeering case back in, the very charges that had already been ruled separate. Lil Durk faced a federal jury in Los Angeles as planned after a judge rejected prosecutors' bid to delay the long-running murder-for-hire case by loading it up with fresh charges tied to alleged gang activity in Chicago, with Judge Michael W. Fitzgerald confirming that the trial for the rapper would proceed on August 20, brushing aside the government's request for more time. His legal team didn't hold back in their public response, calling the newest charges an implicit admission from the government that the original case wasn't strong enough to stand on its own. Underneath all of it sat one constant fight: the battle over whether jurors' names would ever become public at all. And that fight is exactly where the leaked footage did the most damage. The anonymous jury battle wasn't just a side issue in this case. It became the emotional center of the entire pretrial fight, and it's the reason the leaked courtroom photo hit as hard as it did. Prosecutors had been building their argument for months before the photo ever leaked. Part of their case rested on alleged threats connected to the judge overseeing the matter. In November 2025, Banks' defense team filed a motion to dismiss the case after the prosecution revealed threats made to U.S. Magistrate Judge Patricia Donahue and their own prosecution team, with the prosecution revealing the threats. In an effort to impanel an anonymous jury, that motion to dismiss went nowhere. In January 2026, the motion was denied. Then there were the voicemail threats prosecutors said they'd received directly. One caller reportedly rang up a lead attorney on the case with a message that left no room for interpretation. "Free Durk, or we gonna shoot that motherfucker up," the caller declared. And when asked who exactly would be shot up, the caller responded, "Shh, your ass." There was no proven link between that caller and Durk himself, and prosecutors acknowledged as much, but the message still became part of the public record cited in the fight over jury anonymity. Durk's team fired back just as hard, at one point trying to get the lead prosecutor and the judge removed entirely. All Hip Hop's grouchy Greg Watkins reported that a federal judge denied his request to remove the prosecutors from his murder-for-hire case after he alleged that the first assistant U.S. attorney's appointment was improper. That motion failed too. The court rejected the rapper's request for the same reason courts in other cases rejected similar motions after he was given a chance to argue his case, but failed to submit the required statement, and the judge decided the attorney could continue supervising Banks' prosecution. Prosecutors weren't done stacking their threat allegations either. Just weeks after the first round, they surfaced yet another one. Prosecutors continued to push back, with All Hip Hop's grouchy Greg Watkins reporting that they disclosed yet another threat, a call made in April to one of the lead attorneys in the case. Durk's side called the whole pattern of allegations misleading. Prosecutors called Durk's allegations misleading and meritless, labeling his motion bewildering and provocative, and arguing that a criminal defendant cannot cause the recusal of his prosecutor by threatening the prosecutor or having him threatened. This is the exact climate the leaked courtroom photo dropped into. Not a quiet case, not a routine hearing, a case already soaked in dueling accusations of threats, intimidation, and bad faith on both sides. So when someone snapped that photo of the two co-defendants and it spread across Reddit and Instagram within hours, it wasn't an isolated incident. It was proof in the eyes of the government that the danger they'd been describing for months was real and already happening. The fallout from that leak didn't stay contained to the anonymous jury argument either. It bled straight into a bigger fight over publicity itself. As the trial date closed in, prosecutors made a move to lock down what anyone connected to the case could say publicly at all. With Lil Durk's federal murder-for-hire trial set to begin, prosecutors asked the court to impose a limited gag order, arguing that continued public statements from the defense could jeopardize the rapper's right to a fair trial, with federal prosecutors asking the judge to prohibit attorneys and others directly involved in the case from making public comments that could influence potential jurors before trial. Durk's team wasn't having it. They argued the government had spent 2 years feeding its own version of events to the media through indictments and press releases, and now wanted to silence the other side once the coverage started cutting the other way. The Chicago rapper's attorneys filed their opposition, arguing that prosecutors have already pushed their version of the case through detailed indictments and Justice Department press releases, and that the government wants to silence Lil Durk, while its own allegations continue shaping public opinion, writing in their filing that the government should not be permitted to throw rocks and then hide its hands. Durk himself, through his lawyers, made clear he didn't think any of it was necessary in the first place. Lil Durk, whose legal name is Durk Banks, insisted no court intervention was needed, with his lawyers writing that Mr. Banks does not believe that a gag order is necessary and that counsel for both parties are ethical and professional. Even the evidence fights kept escalating right up to the wire. Just weeks before jury selection, Durk's team accused the government of trying to sneak in material a judge had already thrown out. Lil Durk's lawyers said the feds tried to sneak in gang photos and drug texts, after a judge already ruled that evidence out, accusing the government in the filing of trying to turn the trial into a sideshow built on racial bias, and writing that the proposed exhibits were clearly designed to inflame the unconscious biases of the jury. By the second week of August, with jury selection just days away, prosecutors were still trying to keep basic information under wraps. Federal prosecutors filed an urgent private request asking the judge to keep the government's full draft witness list completely sealed from the public until further notice. Every one of these fights, the threats, the gag order, the sealed witness list, the leaked photo, all pointed to the same underlying reality. This case had become impossible to keep quiet, no matter how many motions either side filed. All of that built toward one date, circled on every hip-hop outlet's calendar. A 2022 ambush near Los Angeles' Beverly Center would place Lil Durk before a federal jury on August 20. That's the day. Jury selection finally got underway after nearly 2 years of arrests, delays, sealed motions, and leaked images. By the time it arrived, the case had grown far beyond a single shooting. Durk pleaded not guilty and faced a possible life sentence if convicted, with the government describing the shooting as retaliation for King Von's November 2020 death, Von having been killed during an Atlanta confrontation. Prosecutors weren't just alleging Durk pulled strings from a distance. Durk's attorneys had repeatedly denied that the rapper financed, ordered, or directed any violence. Even as jury selection began, the courtroom fights hadn't stopped. Just a week before, both sides were still arguing over what music and video evidence the jury would even be allowed to see. Durk's trial began on August 20, and the use of the Pissed Me Off video, along with other pre-trial issues, was decided at a hearing days before. The gag order request was still sitting on the judge's desk right up until the final stretch. Judge Fitzgerald had not yet ruled on the motion, with a hearing on the government's request scheduled just 1 week before jury selection began. Durk's own support system showed up in force. Family and famous friends made appearances at hearings throughout the buildup. His father, Dante Banks, and power stars Gianni Paolo and Chris D. Lofton among them. Durk's father, Dante Banks, along with power stars Gianni Paolo and Chris D. Lofton, were in the courtroom to support him. His appearance had visibly changed since his arrest, too. Lil Durk looked a lot different since he shaved his hair last year, appearing with a full beard and wearing a white jumpsuit with gray sleeves. His wife, India Royale, had also shown up for key hearings across the case, sitting through some of the most consequential rulings alongside him. The public attention around the trial hasn't just been about Durk either. It's collided with an entire month of hip-hop's biggest unresolved cases finally reaching a jury at the same time. A murder case that has followed hip-hop for nearly 3 decades finally headed before a jury, with Tupac Shakur's killing only one of 4 major criminal trials scheduled to begin in August. Dwayne Keefe D. Davis facing jurors first when his Las Vegas trial began on August 10, with Durk due in federal court 10 days later. That kind of overlap meant that every leak, every photo, every viral clip out of Durk's courtroom landed in a media environment already primed to devour it. Even as the trial got underway, Durk's team kept insisting the case against him was thin. Attorney Drew Findling has repeated a version of the same argument at nearly every hearing, that after almost 2 years of digging, federal prosecutors still hadn't found the evidence they needed and were instead stacking new charges and new witnesses to make up for it. Prosecutors, for their part, have kept pointing to the confidential witness statements, the alleged threats, and the leaked courtroom images as proof that this is exactly the kind of case that needed extraordinary security measures from the start. What's clear is that the footage and photos that leaked out of Durk's pretrial hearings didn't just embarrass the court system, they became load-bearing, pieces of the government's own argument for how the trial should be run. Every viral clip strengthened the case for anonymity. Every anonymity fight delayed the process further, and every delay gave both sides more time to file more motions, disclose more alleged threats, and generate more headlines. As jury selection moves forward and opening statements approach, the eyes on this case aren't just hip-hop fans anymore. Legal analysts, media outlets, and courtroom reporters are all watching how a judge handles a case where the public record itself has already been compromised multiple times before testimony even begins.